Hello, hello. Post it, but it should be live. I see how this goes. Let's see if I can get on. Nope. I'm just going to start. Thank you, everybody, for being patient and watching us this morning. Watching me this morning fumble about. I want to say welcome, welcome, welcome. Today is Sunday, September 20th, and you're watching Love and Chastity, Earth-Based Advocacy for Humanity with Colin Joe Byrne. Oh my gosh, Colin, I'm so happy you're here again. This is, we covered a lot of information, but not a lot of detailed information, right? So there's so much more to discuss and go over. We had the opportunity to hear a little bit about your awakening at the age of 53. We had some discussion about maritime law and basically how that's been infiltrated. On and on. I mean, on and on the stories go, right? I know that that today we wanted to talk about, or gosh, talk about, this is going to go so deep, you guys. The difference between Earth consciousness and consciousness on other planets, and how Colin experiences those through something called space-time continuum. You know, one of the things, I almost don't even know where to start. I know you're going to know where to start, Colin, but one of the shifts that I have noticed back in 2016 was the shift in bringing in Palladorian activations. And so this is more along the lines of like violet flames and, you know, dealing with interdimensional free world councils. And so because you get to travel and do all this really fun stuff, I'm wondering if you get to experience, how do I say that? How do I put that into a question that I can even make sense of? You know how sometimes you hear things from your guides and it's not even English, right? It's not in a way your brain comprehends it. So this is going to have something to do with the time-space continuum, and languages and frequencies is basically what I'm getting at. How understanding different planetary vibrations or different galactic vibrations are coming here to our planet today, and how that affects us. Did that make sense? I tried to put it in simple words.
Yeah, I've had that experience many times where I get what I call a download of information that makes no sense to me whatsoever. And because I've gotten used to how it works, it doesn't bother me because what my higher selves are doing is they want me to process that information. At first it makes no sense, but then they want, and the way they want me to process it is to just observe. And usually they will bring me the answers through the experiences that I have.
Yeah.
So they'll tell me, like once they told me about holograms, and I had no idea what holograms were. And then I went to visit a friend, and she had a friend visiting her, and a friend said, "Oh, you have to read this book. It's called The Holographic Universe by Michael Colbert." So then I went and I bought the book synchronistically, because it was a synchronistic way the information came to me. So I read the book, and then I read a bit about holograms, and then I asked, what are holograms? And I said, well, you've got a credit card, have you? I said, yeah. I said, the little thing on your credit card is a hologram. It's a three-dimensional picture that changes when you look at it. That changes its design. Not its design, but it changes its perspective. But anyway, we'll talk more about that a little later. But yeah, I get these downloads of information, and then through a process, they usually bring me the answers in a process of self-discovery, really.
Yep, I would agree with that, self-discovery. I've been having crazy dreams, Colin. New things are coming in because we're moving into a new time. And maybe you can help, understand the difference between how is Earth consciousness. I feel like it's merging with other planetary consciousnesses, other galactic, like the galactic consciousness, like we're actually moving into this alignment. And is it safe to say we're like moving through, like what's happening with the Milky Way? Like how is it, like I'm getting these little weird dreams, and how is that, how is our consciousness changing and becoming more galactic and like other planets? Can you help us understand that from your perspective?
Yeah, perhaps I could just go on a bit more about my waking up process, because it will explain this. And when I was waking up, they started training me about giving me information. And the information they were giving me was about how waves of light and sound work, and what waves of light and sound are. But light, light waves are sound waves, and they're magnetic. Um, light waves are magnetic. They manifest in our hologram as thoughts and emotions. Light waves of thoughts and emotions are magnetic. And so they just taught me how the universe synchronistically works with light waves and sound waves. And it's the frequency of the sound wave that determines the experience that you have in the hologram. Now, at first this made no sense to me, but they put me through a process where I began to understand that. Because they taught me about the mechanics of creation. They call it the mechanics of creation. And it's basically how physical matter appears as physical. And in fact, it's not physical, it's a hologram. But it starts with the light and sound wave, it comes together, it crosses over, creates a spark. The spark becomes what we call conscious awareness. And when conscious awareness is created, it begins to observe a reality outside of itself. So it becomes aware of its individuated consciousness and able to observe itself as physical matter, as particles. And then that conscious observer, that spark, creates particles. These particles go out and they come back, and they come out and they come back because of the law of attraction. They come in magnetic force. They begin to spin around each other, and they create what is called a morphogenetic field. It's also called the standing scalar wave. It's also called the arc. But that's basically, no one's ever seen it, but they explain the process and how it works. And these metamorphize into atoms. And then the atoms are individuated protons, neutrons, and electrons that spin. And then once they reach a certain spin speed, they spin very high, they break up and become molecules that vibrate. And then these vibration molecules create what are called cells. They break up into proteins, amino acids, and so on. And
Colin,
Colin,
I want to stop you just for 1 second, only because the sound is like you're coming in and out, and I just want you to double check. I think it's a connection piece, and I just don't want people to lose this really good stuff. So maybe since we're running different algorithms, if we can both just concentrate and run some crystal star frequencies through the field here, that would be beautiful. Get some plasma light going through here. So taking the electrical and the magnetic, moving these into how they go into what's being called a morphogenetic field, how that breaks down into cells.
atoms.
Atoms.
And then the atoms begin to spin.
Yes.
And when they get a certain spin speed, they begin to vibrate. And when they vibrate, they break up and become molecules. And when molecules, the speed of vibration of molecules gets more higher, so it gets the higher frequency,
Yeah.
it breaks up cells, amino acids, and protein. And these cells are what we experience as physical matter. So the important thing that they were trying to teach me was we are not physical matter. We are wave energy. And that's who we really are. The conscious observer is a wave. And that wave creates its physical matter form.
And so this is what then, like, we then are a morphogenetic imprint or field, or right. And so, and this is a little bit about what you touched on last time, was, you know, being able to actually walk through walls, and, you know, the physical matter, it's our perception, right? And we've agreed to this as a consciousness, and that goes into the earth consciousness. And because I have agreed that this is how I look, and and that this phone is a phone, right? I've agreed to this in the collective. Everyone on earth knows that that's a phone, right? That's an agreement. And so that turns into exactly what you're talking about. And that goes, that is it then the consciousness that holds holds the physical image, or the physicality of that hologram?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Put it another way, we've been told that what we see comes in as inward light.
Right.
We've never been taught that we are projecting that field of energy that creates the inward light.
Yes.
So we are projecting our reality. That physical form that we see is our projection of what's already inside us.
I love that you said that, because manifestation is projection, right? Lack creates lack, or love creates love, right?
Yeah.
And so that those are those vibrations that Colin's talking about, right? The vibration that you create, the vibration that you give off, is actually going to manifest.
Yeah.
And it's going to become a solid matter, a solid creation. So would then, that being said, because you know, you're talking just on this little, you know, our little bodies, right? But this is huge. Like, this is, the earth is a hologram.
Yeah. Yeah. The blackest debate about the earth being flat and round. It's flat if you want it to be flat, and it's round if you want it to be round. It's whatever you want it to be.
Isn't that so great? And again, and I know you get to take these on the really big scales, but, you know, taking it down to the small scale, I get to, you know, this is something I share with my kids, my teenagers especially, but you know, somebody else can't make you feel a certain way. You perceive them making you feel a certain way, right? This is, of course, on a smaller scale, but you create how you feel. You create what you want. You are the architect of your life, of your world, of your perceptions. We are architects, right? They don't tell us we're architects. Why don't we get that manual, Colin?
Well, that's the crazy thing. And that's, I think, was the purpose of what they were trying to teach me about reality. And that they take responsibility for their thoughts, their words, their actions, the standards and values, and their attitudes. And they say, because that creates your reality.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't take control of that, you have to be the controller of your reality. And the way to control your reality is through those things I mentioned, like emotions, standards, values, and attitude. And if you change any of those things, you will change your reality. For instance, if you have been continue to think in a certain way, and you've been taught to think a certain way, the sky's going to fall down, so everyone goes and hides in a hut. And then what happens? The sky falls down because you created the sky falling down by thinking about it.
Right? It's
So you have an expectation of a disaster. So, so people create their own disasters. They create the wars, they create murders, they create rape, they create all the bad things that are out there are not being created by somebody else. They're being created by us humans.
Mm-hmm.
And if you could understand that because we're that powerful, we can change completely the experiences we have in the kind of world we live in. All we have to do is change our thoughts, emotions, standards, and values.
It sounds so simple, doesn't it? It sounds so simple to just change your thoughts and emotions, to just change your perception. Why is it so hard? What?
It's so hard because people don't realize how brainwashed they have been on this planet.
Mm-hmm.
And into certain patterns of thinking. Now, a pattern is, in a sense, the geometry of their logic. Okay? And the way this pattern works, it's a self-repeating pattern. So it's, in a sense, a self-defeating pattern. So people find it very difficult to change.
Mm-hmm.
Stop repeating these patterns of behavior. And it takes really a lot of self-control to observe your thoughts and observe your emotions and ask yourself, where do these come from? Are they really mine? Or are they somebody else? And I used to do a course with Ed Cloud, Awakening in the Dream. And part of the course was to observe your thoughts and emotions and to write them down. And to carry a picker with you every time you have a thought that you think, every time you have a thought that is not your only pick. You count the number of thoughts you have every day that are conditioned thoughts.
Right.
They're not authentic thoughts. And I also have a split where people can do a self-evaluation on their emotions. And it just asks, it gives a list of 132 odd emotions. And so how many of these emotions do you experience often? And you rate them in terms of 1 to 10 as how often you experience them. And then you can do a sort on those emotions, which emotions you are most likely to be having at any time. And when you do that exercise, you'll be surprised to find out how many emotions are repetitive. They just playing around in our emotional bodies, because they are emotions that we are attached to. and we support these emotions, whether they're positive or negative. But the problem is many people are supporting negative emotion. Because emotion. Now those emotions are waves of energy. People understand the nature of energy. And those magnetic wave is, it circles out like a ring, like when you drop a pebble in a pond, it goes out in that kind of shape. And whereas a thought wave goes in one direction. It goes up in and spirals, around. Most of the straight line in the universe, everything is moving. Everything.
Concentric circles. Most energy moves in concentric circles.
Yeah. So because it's one directional, the magnetic wave carries the electric wave. So the emotions carry the thought wave. And if your emotions or thought are in cohesion with each other, the one supports the other, and it creates a bigger wave that makes some of their part in the individual. But on the other hand, they're not in cohesion with the other. The one wave comes and collapses the other wave and flattens the line.
Right.
So people are not able to express themselves to the universe because their thoughts and emotions are not in cohesion with each other. They're having good thoughts but bad emotions. And so those bad emotions they're feeling are just collapsing their good thoughts.
And I'm just picturing, I'm remembering the time I tried surfing. And I just, as much as I wanted to get back up, the waves just kept pulling me back down. I thought I was dying. I was drowning, right? And so that reminds me of our emotions, the way you explain the electric and magnetic, how they're carrying and counteracting each other, right? And it just keeps, it's like the ocean, it just keeps pulling us down. Is it fair, Colin, to suggest that thoughts and emotions are dream state?
Okay, now let's get back to that information I was giving you earlier about you think you're seeing from waves, but you don't know you also seeing pushing out the emotion that you experience. So you are pushing out the thought and emotion, and that is coming back to you as a physical matter experience.
Right.
So whatever you are sending out in your emotions, then it comes back at you in some way or another.
Mm-hmm.
Because you are creating that. And where does it come from? It comes from the pineal gland, that's your thought signature, and then your thymus gland sends out the emotional signature that carries information from your heart. Most people only know about the pineal gland and they're used and learning to awaken their pineal gland, but they're not using their thymus gland. In some parlance, it's called azure.
Oop, I didn't hear that last part. The thymus gland you said is called what?
Is called the azure ray.
The azure ray. Okay. Okay. I have not heard that term before. I love that. That actually feels really good when I say that, azure ray. Wow.
So to answer your question about your emotions, how they affect what your reality is you are, if you're not actively involved in projecting good emotion and good thoughts, what will happen is you are projecting thoughts and emotions that you've been conditioned to think. And so you're not experiencing your own experiences, you're experiencing the experiences you've been conditioned to think.
Right.
The people are prisoners here, but they're prisoners of their own minds.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's, it's so true. And the thing is, we don't know until we know. right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of the hard part, right? Because we're all in different levels of awareness. And, you know, it's like, as much as we want to hold our hand out and pull someone out from the water, you can't, right? Uh, you can talk till you're blue in the face and whatever. It's just, we keep talking and hoping that our light codes, our sacred geometries that we've created will help connect and carry some of their light frequencies up to the surface, right? So, go ahead.
You talked about the geometry, because if you look at the geometry of your waves, your magnetic waves go out, and then in reality they begin to spiral, twist. Okay,
Yeah.
and the thoughts go out and they're not straight. They go out and they begin to spiral with the magnetic wave. So they become, how you focus on something will affect whether that thing will be created for you or not.
Right.
Because the two support each other, and then they support each other in a focused way, and then they begin to see what they've thought themselves.
You know what's so interesting, and I'm sure you've done this before, looked at somebody, let's say you're in the middle of a heated argument, right? And in that moment, and you can only do this in the moment. Well, I guess that's not true, because holographic realities, you can actually go back in time, which I'll have you talk about, time-space continuum, right? But in that moment, if we think, if we project, like you're saying, if we project what we want the situation to become, all of a sudden the argument can stop. It can stop in a heartbeat. It's as if it never happened. And I love that. I just like kind of playing with it and going, oh my gosh, does this work? And I'll do that. And I just, I love that you're sharing the, you know, projecting out. They're not thoughts that come in, right? And so, or you know what I mean? So they're coming out. And so I, I'm overwhelmed with joy that, that it's so simple, right? Like it's like you said, habits, right? It's about writing down how many times a day are you having the same emotion. These are patterns, and these patterns get ingrained into our physicality, and we have the capability to remap all of that. We have the ability to change time in each moment, which then changes past and future, and of course the current moment. So how do you explain the time-space continuum from your perspective? I know this is something you know wanted to touch on. And when we talk about time-space or space-time, how does that relate in connection to Earth consciousness and other planetary consciousnesses? Like how does that spin together?
Again, it's all about the frequencies of light and sound, because you get something in music, for instance, called harmonics.
Mm-hmm.
When certain notes are played, they are they harmonize, and they in tune with each other. They have a certain harmonic resonance relative to each other. Okay, and it's pretty much based on the Fibonacci sequence.
Oh yeah, I was going to ask you about that. I have the Fibonacci spirals, like there's Fibonacci spirals, right? So I'm new at understanding this. Are those uh, infiltrated? Like have some of these things been infiltrated and reversed? Are and how do we recognize that? I know that's kind of an even deeper question, but like sometimes in session work, I see Fibonacci spirals, but the guides will ask me to correct these. right?
Yeah.
I don't, and so what is that, what does that mean if those aren't spinning correctly?
Oh, sure. That's a good question. Uh, the Fibonacci spiral, it's important to understand, it's a construct, okay, that was brought to this planet by the fallen angelics. And if you look at the spiral, it goes out and expands, but then it begins to contract and spin inward, and it begins to collapse.
Right.
So it has that form and shape, So musical notes do that as well. If you look at the way musical notes, the relationship they have to each other, are based on the Fibonacci spiral. And so the end result of the spiral is the collapse of the spiral. So when it spirals in on itself, and then it just ends, it collapses. Whereas the universe has something else called the Christic spiral, which is based on an ever-expanding spiral. So it goes out and out and out and out and never stops.
And like breathes, like it's like breathing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that is effectively, let me go, one of the things that taught me after the mechanics of creation, they taught me that the creation is designed in a certain way, and it's called the universal creation and design template. Okay, so it works everywhere in the universe the same way. So once you know how the template works, it works the same way everywhere. Because we live in a fractal universe where what outside of you is also inside.
Mm-hmm.
Everything goes out and it comes back, and it goes out and it comes back. Everything is breathing in the universe in a sense. And what you breathe, what is out in the macro is also in the micro and nano. Mm-hmm. And once you know the universal design template, now part of the Christic spiral is part of the universal design template that is ever expanding. And what we have on this planet, and this is the big difference, that if humans want to understand extraterrestrials and beings in other dimensions and other time-space continuum, they have to understand that they have a different understanding of creation, of how things work, are supposed to work. That are far more responsible about the emotions of being. And they know all the mechanics. They understand the mechanics of creation. They understand the mechanics of Merkaba. They understand the mechanics of vortexes. They understand how all these things work in the universe. But and the Christic spiral creates an unlimited spiral, right. Whereas human consciousness is based on the Fibonacci limiting spiral.
Yeah.
It allows for a certain expansion, but then it begins to contract in on itself. Yep. And begins to
and that's what, yeah, and collapses, and then that creates that resurgence of patterning, of negative patterning, negative emotion, living in the pain body, kind of a thing. And I'm just taking it down super simple, right? Wow. Okay, that was very helpful, actually, because, I'm sure other people can see or sense the difference between an infinite spiral and a collapsing spiral, right? They feel different. Like one feels inorganic, right? One feels like yucky, and one feels like, oh my gosh, I can breathe. Okay, and you're bringing up the Merkaba again, which I absolutely love. Yes.
Now, another thing that happened with because the Fibonacci spiral can be used effectively for human soul regeneration. Okay, it's not highly negative. But what they did is they changed the frequency of the note A in music from 432 to 440. So all the music that has been played on our planet since 1939, all the tuning instruments are tuned to the note of the frequency of 440 instead of 432.
Oh, hold on, you blocked out. So we were at the frequency, we're tuned to the frequency of 410?
440.
440, okay. And
Yeah,
we're supposed to be at what frequency?
432.
432. Oh my gosh. Isn't that a shit show?
Yeah, so they've used frequency weapons against human beings,
Yep.
the four, that's how they control us, because we think they control the external world we live in,
Mm-hmm.
but they don't.
No.
We control the external world we live in. What they do is control our minds and emotions.
Yes. And they do that so simple through even television programming, right? Because these are frequency waves, right?
Yeah,
And so what's the difference between a scalar wave and like a free and like there are different levels. I guess my question is there are different levels of mind control, right? And so can you touch on that a little bit?
yeah. The mind can, at the fundamental level, it's controlled through energy waves. Okay, but humans are not very good at picking up energy waves.
Mm-hmm.
It's not to really pick up energy, very less energy sensitive. So they can feel things like they can feel electricity, they can feel magnetic waves around them, they can feel uh, something happening around them that they can't actually see, but they just know to be there. So these people, are not going to be easily mind controlled. The ones that are easily mind controlled are the ones who just totally oblivious to the fact that they have all these frequencies coming into them right and sound that can affect the physiology, okay? Because we are physical energy beings, but we have physical bodies, and they have a kind of um, symbiotic relationship. So the one depends on the other. So if you are affecting the waves in the energy fields of the soul body, that affects what happens in the physical body, and then what happens in the physical body is felt in the physical body, and then it projects back into the soul body.
Yeah.
So that's what they're doing. They provide us with bad information that we produce bad emotions and thoughts that go into our physical bodies. And our physical bodies then push that back into the soul body, and it becomes a spiral, a
Yeah.
self-spiral. That's how people get into these patterns. So it's done through a multiple number of ways. I mean, the primary reason to be lied to on this planet about everything. Everything is a lie. Yeah. Our mathematical system is based on the decimal system. That's not universal. The universal system is the 369 system of mathematics.
Mm-hmm.
And it has a different way of resolving issues than the decimal system. And they introduced the number zero, which doesn't exist in the universe, but when it exists in your consciousness, then it has an effect on your consciousness. So
Yeah.
then they introduced religions and they gave us external gods, to believe in, and they told us that there's a God out there. And they didn't want us to know is that God is in there. We are gods.
Right. And then, you say that and all of a sudden, that's you're gonna catch hellfire for it, right? Like uh for
Yeah,
for saying that. You just brought up the 369, and I want to touch on that a little bit, because what a lot of people don't understand is that we have a rod and staff inside of us, right? And we have and correct me if I'm wrong, but we slide up and down the harmonics of our body with this, right? And so when we don't understand the actual real base math system, it's again, it's going to be the wave crashing over the top of our heads every single time, because we're not able to play those notes. We're not able to play those keys. We can't slide up and down our vertical channel, right? This is our central column, our vertical channel. It's not clear, right? We have to dissolve chakra. We have to dissolve things. We have to move things. We have to learn how to hear tones and move up and down those horizontal triads, right? Those the harmonics in our body. So thank you for bringing up the 369. How can, what is there like any one thing? Is it as simple as just knowing that it is 369, that there is no zero, that'll start to awaken something in somebody? Or is there something that they can study? I mean, obviously your teachings, right, are going to share this. So taking Colin's classes is really going to help you understand how our body works, right? And how energy moves through your body. And, you know, just waking up to the fact that we are electromagnetic, multidimensional, right? And beings. And how many harmonics would you say on average we're actually functioning off of? Average human, like how many sound tones? I don't know. Is that the same as a tone?
12.
Mm-hmm.
12 different, like we have 12 chakras.
Mm-hmm.
We have 7 on-body chakras, and we've got 5 off-body chakras. Then we have 3 universal chakras. Okay, so that's 15 chakras in total. But we tend to be only in the level of 1, 2, 3, 4, up to 12.
Mm-hmm.
So that's more or less where the physical man resonates and experience himself. When you go into those frequencies of 13, 14, 15, your consciousness changes completely, and you become God man.
Yeah, I was going to say that's when we get into God consciousness. That's when we connect with our avatar self.
Yeah, yeah.
Isn't that fun?
Yeah, so just knowing but the purpose that I wanted to do tonight was to help people understand that we are not just physical beings. And it was very difficult for me when I first met my higher self, who have different physical forms than me, you know, to understand them, because they seem so strange to me. And then they introduced, I wasn't seriously with my higher self, Aizmir, and he introduced me to my family there, my soul family, in where I have a direct soul connection with. And then I met these people who were very, very different from humans, and they behave differently, and they look differently, they think differently, they don't speak, they don't eat, they just telepath, and they have these waves, thought waves coming through them all the time, and they're quite happy to have all this mumbo jumbo going in. So they resonate on a much higher frequency than we, and that's how it works, because we are in dimensions 1, 2, and 3. Okay. The other beings can be on dimensions 4, 5, and 6. And some beings in dimensions 7, 8, and 9, and some beings on 10, 11, 12. And the dimension determines the frequency.
Right.
Frequency determines the physicality. So in the first dimension, we are physical matter beings. In the next harmonic bandwidth of 4, 5, dimensions 4, 5, and 6, we semi-etheric or plasma bodies. And then in the next harmonic, we of 7, 8, and 9, we are etheric beings.
Mm-hmm.
And then in higher dimensions, we are liquid light in the fourth.
Yes.
Now, all of these had certain properties, you know. navigating your way around them is really the purpose of what I hope we can do in our shows, to help people understand this and help people to navigate through the universe. Because, you know, people imagine, you know, we've been lied to here about space, for instance. We have rocket ships, they say go to the moon, but they don't go to the moon, they just fly around our atmosphere. They can't actually go through our atmosphere because of the type. You know, there's so much radiation in the Kuiper belt it could destroy any living thing in the Kuiper belt. You can send metals through, but you can't send humans or any sentient beings through there. So they lied to us about even about the nature of the moon. Because when I was with my higher self, I was told that on Sirius B there are blue feathered beings called blue aliens. And so when I got there and I saw him, one of the first questions I asked is, "Am I on Sirius B?" And he said, "What do you mean?" And I said, "Sirius B, the star in the sky." And he said, "Well, not really." He said, "The star in the sky doesn't exist because you are projecting the star in the sky."
That's gonna, I need another cup of coffee. Oh my gosh. So,
all you do.
Because we've created the names, like that's our reality. We don't have another, you know.
It exists in our consciousness because the Syrians, from the blue aliens, were part of the beings that created the Earth.
Mm-hmm.
They were scientific geneticists who work to form different species here on this planet.
Right.
So we have a very strong connection to places like Sirius B, Pleiades, but it's more the resonance of those places, the consciousness that is in our DNA, and in our soul bodies we have a corresponding something that corresponds to DNA called the soul code, which is like information programming that just carries information, but it's based on the universal design template. So it's designed in a certain way. So if we hold that soul code in our soul body, we will have the corresponding DNA in our physical body.
Mm-hmm.
Now we have two kinds of DNA, the genetic DNA and what they call junk DNA. Right. The genetic DNA, the information for that genetic DNA comes from our parents, our lineage, our genealogy, okay? But the information for our junk DNA comes from our soul codes. Okay? So our previous lifetimes, who we are, what our experience would be, where we are in the evolution of our souls, what our past experiences and so that soul body that we have, it carries all that information. We just don't know about it. Right. Never.
And so I always say I'm somebody who came in partially awake. So I have, I call it cellular knowing, right? Access to information that I've not studied or, whatever. It's just a knowing. And I know that comes from my junk DNA, right? I've known at a very young age that, what I see and sense, not everybody does, but that I could see that the potential is in each and every single one of us, right? I don't know why I got to come here partially awake, if it was a choice or whatever. I'm still working on answers, but do we use our soul DNA to move our consciousness
Yeah, could you give me 2 minutes?
Yep, got it. Yeah, we're going to take just a little bit of a break. I don't know about you guys, but I'm super excited about what we're talking about so far. If there have been any questions, I apologize. I'm not able to see them at this point. I'm still new at the technologies. But I'm happy to go back and answer anything that of questions you have so far in the chat below moving forward until I nail all this stuff in and nail it down a little bit better. I think that what we have been discussing has been pretty amazing. Oh, yay, there's Colin. I was just telling everybody how excited I am about what we're learning. So what I know that, and we're really coming up on the end of our hour here. So I don't know, I feel like I want to ask one more question about the DNA stuff. And when we are taking our consciousness and we're, hold on, I want to back this up because, so what the guides were showing me when you were talking about not being able to leave our atmosphere, it brought up Stargates for me. And I know that we can go in and open Stargates, right? And travel through these. So this is almost a two-part question, and if we don't have time for it, we can come back to it. But can we then, in our physicality, travel through the Stargates into other interdimensional realities and use our DNA as a key code, right? Like a master key code. And is that, or is it really only in our consciousness that we travel? And does it matter if it's a physicality or a consciousness? Am I making sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The thing is, Stargates are just a technology, a portal that is able to move your consciousness out of one dimensional stream of frequency, they call it. So time is just waves of energy experienced as a sequence of experiences. And so when we want to go have a different experience in a different dimension, we could use a Stargate portal. They're also called wormholes. So it's just conscious. But if you want to take your physicality with you into the next dimension, you have to have the frequency of where you're going to in your body.
Got it.
In order to raise the frequencies of your physical body so that you can take your physical body to. That's kind of how ascension works.
And then do you go ahead, I'm sorry.
You have to raise the frequencies of your soul body. So you have to heighten your thoughts, emotions, standards, values, and attitudes. Practice those, get your frequencies up. And once you have those frequencies will then awaken the junk DNA in you and raise the frequency of your DNA in your physical body, that when you go through the portal, you've done the homework, so you get through. If you haven't done the homework, you don't want to try.
You don't get a pass, right? And then that'll go into really understanding the Merkaba, right? Understanding how that spins. You and I mean, we all have Merkaba bodies, right? And because we're not only both male and female as a being, I am both male and female. You are both male and female, but your physicality is male. So your Merkaba spins different than mine, right? And mine spins different than yours. And so that's, kind of a fun piece that perhaps we can touch on next time, identifying the physicality with our I've lost it, not spiritual, but our higher self, our consciousness. Like being able to make the bringing down the ascension pieces into the body. Oh my gosh, Colin, I could just talk to you forever, and I have so many questions, and I sometimes step on your thoughts, and I apologize for that. Thank you for being patient with me. I'm very much looking forward to. I want to stay on. I want to stay on key for everybody watching, and for honoring your space and your time. I hope that our next show, next Sunday, same time, same place. Still going to work on dialing these places that we show up on, same time, same place. And we'll go back in and touch on anything if people had questions that I'm not able to see. We'll weave those in and also answer questions down below. So. Gosh, Colin, thank you so much. Thank you to our guides. Thank you to everybody. Thank you for watching. Love each of you.
Yeah, everybody, if you want to see these regularly, just push the subscribe button and like the video, and you'll get notifications. Press a notification bell so you get notifications when the shows are happening. Okay.
Okay, and don't forget to check out the writings of Colin Joe Byrne. You'll see it in the comments. Love you guys. Bye, Colin. Bye-bye.